Good morning, everyone. So I'm Tilini. I'm currently working as an associate director and the head of engineering of API Manager Business Unit. So today I'm going to talk about API first architecture. How, like throughout the conference, many speakers in many sessions we talk about how we can modernize our systems, like what are the challenges that we face, and different strategies that we need to use, right, based on your business. So in my session, I'm going to focus on how you can use API first architecture to modernize your digital business. Modernization is not a luxury, it's a necessity, right? So, but many of the organizations, they think that we are doing okay in our business. We have, a good customer base, we have good products, and we can survive in the market. So why we rock the boat? So let me illustrate this, to prove this statement, let me get a real world example and explain it to you. During this pandemic, many of the US citizens, they faced a catastrophic event because they have this unemployment insurance system that maintained by each state. So during pandemic, we know that many of the citizens, they lost their jobs, but unfortunately, this system was not ready enough to accept a huge demand, because many people lost their jobs. They tried to claim their insurance money to get on their lives, but the system was not ready enough to accept that surge of demand. So basically it crashed, and many people were desperate. They couldn't get on with their lives because they couldn't claim the insurance money. They had to wait weeks to get their insurance claim. So it's not that simple. We have a better system right now, but without modernization, we really can't think about the future. Okay, let's talk about key drivers for the modernization. The main drive is agility, right? If you have this monolith monster in the back, to apply a tiny bit of a change, you must have experienced this in your day-to-day life, right? Because you deal with digital systems daily. To apply teeny bit of a change, if you have to wait 2-3 months, if you have to you are very afraid to change a legacy system because we don't know where it might break, right? So without agility, we really can't survive in the business. And we really can't provide a better customer experience. That again comes as a side effect of not having enough agility. We can't improve the system, we can't bring new functionalities because everything is blocked with legacy trap. And obviously you can't really innovate. As I explained, if you don't have proper agile or adaptable system in your digital business, you really can't think of delivering your products easily to the market, right? You have to wait longer than expected to test out whatever the features that you implement and get it to the market faster. And sustainability, better security posture, that's again a main concern, because in legacy systems, we already experienced that within our organization as well. Legacy systems, because some of them are decades old, we haven't thought about security aspect during that implementation, right? But now we cannot leave it as it is, because we have high tendency of getting cyber attacks here and there. So we really have to focus on improving the security aspect of our applications as well, and sustainability. You can survive in the market, but to get ahead of the market, you have to, think about the future trends and how you can bring your business into a better place and sustain in the market to become a leader. So let's see how you can use API first architecture for the modernization journey. Let's start with what do we really mean by API first? Actually, I asked this question from some of my colleagues and some of the developers. What do you really mean by API first? The immediate answer we get is designing your API first. You start with the design. Before the implementation, you start with the design. Does it really mean by API first? So in my opinion, API first is not a technical methodology that we need. It's not a mere technical methodology that we need to follow. Obviously, it's like we have to start with the design. That's the way we implement it. But before that, we have a bunch of things to do before turning our business into API first approach. So basically, you have to reimagine your whole business capabilities. Now you have a legacy system. You don't cater the current offering only, right? You have to think about how you are going to elevate this business in next 2-5 years, right? And how you can innovate, how you can improve the experience, and it's not a technical methodology, more of a strategic vision. So I will explain how you really do that. In API first approach, we do not merely treat these APIs as mere endpoints, right? We treat them as products, first class products. What do you mean by products? It's typical. It's similar to the physical product. For example, if it is a mobile phone, we think about user experience. We think about the value that you are going to gain to the business by delivering that product. So likewise, first we have to think of it as a digital product, and design before implementation. That's the typical approach that we need to follow, and most of the time it's contract driven. So in the next few slides, I will walk you through a roadmap or the step-by-step guidelines and best practices that you need to follow when it comes to modernizing your business. First step, as I explained, it's not designing the API first. You need to start with strategy, right? You need to collect all the business capabilities that you are going to deliver in future. You might have some current offerings, but you need to think about what you are going to integrate, what your business is going to be in next decade. And modernization goal is another major aspect that you need to consider of. For example, I will give you an example. Domino's, they used to be, typical pizza delivery, pizza food chain decade ago, but they saw this opportunity of revolutionizing their business, right? They thought about customer experience, how they can provide better experience for the customers when it comes to delivering pizza and all. So they invented things like voice ordering and pizza order status tracking, and they came up with a nice application where the users can easily use it in the mobile phone. They invented most of them decade ago. So that's their major goal of the modernization was improving customer experience, user experience. With that, they were able to increase their sales. They become one of the major food chains all around the world. So agility, so that can be whatever it depends on your organization, the goal. And then you need to prioritize these capabilities, right? You can't modernize everything over one night. So you have to start it step by step, but you need to prioritize. For example, the Domino's, they might have another use case, another requirement to improve their internal developer experience better, but they focused on enhancing their external developers. Basically, that's how they are earning their revenue, right? So we need to give the priority based on your organization goal. And domain-driven design, that's very important part of the modernization with API first. We need to come up with, we have to categorize these business functionalities into different domains. For example, you might be having a finance domain. You must be having, for example, if you take Domino's, they must be having a store management or restaurant management domain. So different domains, they have different functionalities that they are going to expose. And within these domains, they have to come up with, shareable language where we can refer to different entities that we manage within domain. For example, pizza or the employee or the menu of the, menu that you can order through the mobile application. And once you come up with that terminology, we need to do the domain modeling. We have to come up with entities. What should we include in a pizza? Maybe topping or maybe, add-ons like cheese and all. We have to include everything and design your entity. And in addition to that, you need to maintain a relationship. A menu includes pizza, and the customer comes and based on the behavior, customer comes and order pizza. Likewise, you have to model everything at the initial stage. Next thing would be, that's really the designing phase comes into play. API first is a contract first approach, right? So, you know that many of the developers, they are familiar with REST and they always try to, you must have experienced this as well, because they prefer REST, right? Because it's the most adapted API style. But based on your requirement, you have to select the correct API style. For example, in Domino's case, if they want to provide real-time updates on your order status, whether it's in the oven, whether it's on the delivery. So for that, can we really use REST? No, right? It's not optimized, because we have to call the server and inform the current status of the order. So we better go for a sync API style. For example, we can use a WebSocket API for that. And on the other hand, if you want to implement a proper advanced filtering mechanism in your mobile app to search and personalize your order, let's say that I want to get a vegetable pizza without olives and whatever, onions, right? Then you need to provide, anyway, you can't, it's not optimized to use REST. You better go for a GraphQL kind of a query optimized language. And the next thing, you need to focus about the consumers. Now, we used to, design APIs for humans, but in current era, we have machines, right? LLMs and, different AI agents. So we need to focus on that as well, because based on the consumer, the way you design the API differs. And of course, within the API design, we need to come up with the entities, how the error should be handled. Everything has to be self-descriptive within the API definition itself. Mocking and validation, that's really important, because as engineers, we like to do over-engineering, right? We over-assume things, and we actually, when we are designing API, we bring the end-user perspective to our API, right? But sometimes we might miss the most important stuff. Simple but most important stuff, but we might overcomplicate things that we shouldn't have. So it's very important to get earlier feedback before jumping into the actual implementation. Mocking and validation comes into picture at that point. You can, get the definition done and mock it and provide it to the real stakeholders so we can get the feedback. Iteratively implement, redesign the API, apply the changes. So when we hit the sweet spot, then you can go for the implementation. And collaboration is another important point, because in API first design, API contract is the single source of truth. So when we have the contract, let's say that there are backend developers who are working on the backend, and there can be front-end application developers who work on the same functionality, implementing the same functionality on the front-end application. They can work parallelly in a collaborative way because they have this agreed upon contract. Okay, so now we comes into the modernization implementation, right? Now we have these legacy systems. And different organizations choose to modernize based on your requirement, right? Microservice decomposition is most adapted modernization pattern. Netflix is a great example for that. They have reinvented everything, and they moved into microservice decomposition architecture in earlier stage of their modernization journey. And in microservice decomposition, what we really do is we break this whole monolith systems into microservices, right? We try to represent a use case driven, like everything would be use case driven, and we expose them to microservices which are reusable in different applications. Triangle fit pattern is another approach, because as I explained, it depends on your organization. Sometimes they can't really invest time and cost on reformatting everything, right? What they select is they for some extent, they modernize some of the services. They have set of modernized services, but there's a legacy system they really can't afford changing right now. So what they really do is they keep it as it is, but expose that legacy layer as API. So it's a hybrid solution. We have a bunch of new services plus legacy services, but for the outside, you can really see the complexity. But eventually, they will migrate them to deprecate the old services and migrate them to the new modern microservice architecture. Anti-corruption layer. It's another pattern. So there, what we really do is we have this monolith system at the back end, but you have this nicely designed API structure on the top, right? So then you introduce a new layer in the middle where you can hide the complexity of the actual backend. So outside people, the actual consumers won't see the complexity. We won't corrupt the nice, API layer that we came up with, but underneath, it's still the same legacy monster we have. Okay, so developer experience, as I explained, that's a crucial part of modernization, right? You might come up with nice set of APIs, very far, we have modernized, we have invested so much time and effort on that. But if those APIs cannot really deliver a real value to the developers, your effort will be in vain. So that's where the requirement of developer portal comes into the picture. You definitely should have a developer portal where the developers can come and discover their APIs. We might, provide recommendations and features like categorization, searching, tagging, and all for them to help out to find the correct API, the appropriate API they want, and that enables reusability within your organization in itself. Because if there's an API implemented, maybe internal developer, maybe an external developer, you can reuse it without re-implementing everything from the scratch. And documentation is another crucial part because as a developer, you have to provide, because we are developing APIs for developers, right? We need to provide proper documentation for them to utilize these APIs. So traditionally, we come up with this lengthy API documentation, which includes all the steps that we need to follow when it comes to trying out or using this API in their applications. But my recommendation with my personal experience, what I would really recommend is to make your API contract as descriptive as much as possible. Include everything, make it the single source of truth. For example, let's say that from the backend, we do a small bug fix and we rename the query parameter. We fix a typo. So we have to redo that documentation again to apply that change. But if you have a self-restricted specification or maybe a graphical specification, we can use the tooling like Stoplight Elements or maybe Redocly or maybe Swagger UI to render these documentation in a more interactive way. Being interactive is another key point because what we really experience, what we really feel is more impactful than what you really read through, right? You must have experienced that in person. SDK code samples, because developers come from different backgrounds, different platforms, they use different languages. So we need to provide SDK samples to cater those requirements as well. And support and community. That's again a main thing that we need to build. We need to build a community around the APIs, right? So if there's a problem in the API, sometimes the community itself, if they are aware of this, if you have a community, they jump in and they try to help out the developers. But then there is no need of going back to the actual API owner and get that information from him. That's again enforced reusability and faster delivery to the market. And theming and personalization. Most of the developer portals, it's better to provide a personalized experience because some people, they have their color preference, they have their language preference, and recommendations, again, it's based on the developer, right? So personalizing and theming is quite important at this stage. Okay, so with the API first architecture, if you are moving to API first architecture, something that you would experience is wide adoption, right? When we have this microservice architecture, we break everything into microservice, and you might be onboarding thousands of APIs to the platform. But here comes another problem, right? So different developers, I think many of our customers, they have this problem in their current, business, in their current deployment, because when many of the developers are onboarding their API, how we are going to make sure that the standards they have the APIs are getting comply with the standards that we enforce, whether they are good with quality, whether the security posture is good. So we need to think about that aspect. Sometimes what people do is we have these product managers and architects that we have within the organization. They come and review them manually. That's not going to work, right? That's going to be a nightmare, because when you have thousands of API, it would introduce a real bottleneck in the system. So that won't, that will be totally opposite of the purpose of bringing API first approach to the modernization. So we have different specifications that we need to adhere, right? Can be open API specification, and for some industries, they have their, industry-based standards or regulations that need to follow. For example, if it is a healthcare, we need to adhere to the fire regulation. And in Europe, we have a bunch of other regulations, and some industries, they have their own organizations, they have their own domains, organization-specific one. For example, in my organization, I would prefer, if it is a public-facing API, I would prefer the developers to use O2 as the default authenticating mechanism. So likewise, so how you are really going to bring a proper governance platform? Because governance and agility is two different aspects. We need to maintain a proper balance of it. Otherwise, you will end up in a catastrophe. So that's where the automated governance comes into play. Automated governance means you enforce these rules in your development framework itself. You don't wait until the last minute to point out, okay, this API has some, this security mechanism is not supposed to be used in this API. You have to go and fix it. It's a bottleneck, right? So the idea of this would be to enforce these policies at the very early stage of development. And governance surveillance, again, a very important thing. As the administrative, I can't go and, check on all the APIs, but I should have a summarized view of what sort of APIs are having compliance problems, what sort of APIs are ready to go to the market. So it's important to have the stats in mind. Shift left compliance. That's the most recommended approach that we should implement within the organization. In that approach, we empower the developers, right? We provide them proper guidelines, maybe style guides within their code editors, API editors, to guide them at the very early stage of the development. For example, now when we are writing a code, if there's a syntax error, it immediately jumps in and say, okay, you can't go ahead. This is just a compilation error. You have to fix it. Likewise, even for the API design, we have to bring that sort of discipline to stop, to avoid that bottleneck at the very last stage. Analytics and monitoring. So that's again, it's typical. You might think that how it's going to affect the API first approach. That's how we are going to measure whether our modernization effort is a success or not. We need to measure the ROI. So, for example, if the modernization goal was to improve the customer experience, that's where the analytics comes in. We have to see whether we are increasing any sales, we are increasing any API usage, so that we can have a insight on whether we are hitting our goals. And additionally, you have to track the usage patterns, performance. Because modernization is not a one single project that you need to finish and say, okay, I'm done. We have modernized, right? it's a journey, as Sanjeev explained in keynote. It's a journey, and you need to keep monitoring the system whether we are hitting. Is there a drop in the sales? So then we have to investigate why it's happening. So likewise, monitoring analytics, it plays a crucial part of our modernization journey. And data-informed API lifecycle. That means, for example, in the strangle, pick, pattern, or anti-corruption layer, we have this legacy APIs that we are exposing as APIs, right? But at some point, we have to deprecate them and get on with the new version that we have implemented as a microservice. So then we better to have a proper understanding what is the usage of this API, how many consumers are there. You can't simply go and deprecate the old one, because you have to properly migrate those consumers to give them a better experience. Okay, so let's see how you can future-proof your APIs with API First, how it's been, how it helps to future-proof your business. So with API First, we make your whole system, your digital business, more adaptable, more flexible to change, right? We really can't imagine what would come in next 2-3 years. Like 10 years back, personally, I haven't imagined that AI would be this impactful in our life. For me, it was like, some scenes that we have seen in movies like Matrix, right? So we really can't predict, because we are in a fast-moving world. And API First allows you to, easily emerge, like with the adaptability, you can, incorporate emerging technologies easily to your business. For example, bringing new AI technologies to your system is much easier if you have designed your business to be more agile. And API economy, that Twilio, they made majority of the revenue out of APIs, right? That's their business. So we need to encourage, and we can build a platform business model out of it. You need to, encourage the external developers, third parties come and use their APIs, and you can make a revenue out of it. And these are some of the specs, some of these we provide them as features in many of the WSO2 products as well. This is how you can use AI for API First to, enhance the process. AI-assisted design, obviously, you have seen it in many of our labs as well. So basically, that helps you to come up with the proper API style. You are not supposed to start with REST, because there are more other API styles that you can use. It helps you to come up with the proper style and, skeleton of your API definition that you can refine and improve more. And AI-driven API discovery, that's been anyway used by many other retail companies like Amazon as well. That helps you to improve the user experience in the developer portal and SDK generation. I wouldn't go deeper into this because as we are running out of time. And AI-powered governance is kind of important because we have this lengthy documentation. For example, I think Sanjeev already talked about this in the keynote. We have this lengthy documentation of, REST API design guidelines. But do we suppose them to read through and apply those, standards in their API design? No, right? Because people are lazy. So it's better to feed those information to the proper AI-based governance framework and get suggestions from them to improve the API design at the early stage of it. And obviously, we can use AI for development. We do it within WSO2 as well. Okay, so I would like to conclude my session with one of the quotes made by John Scully. He used to be the former CEO of PepsiCo and Apple. The future belongs to those who see possibilities before they become obvious. That's very relevant to API First architecture because you might be doing fine in your current business model, but to get ahead in time to become a leader, you need to make the decisions. Okay, now I cannot survive like this. I need to modernize. So it's your choice whether to wait for the future or make it. Okay, with that, I would like to conclude my session and hand over to Arshad. Thank you all for listening. Okay.